Meeting of the Cumberland County Commissioners to order. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be part of us. We salute you. We thank you. At this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Charles Evans for our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, could we stand, please, for the invocation and the pledge, followed by the pledge. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, we'd like to say thank you for another day, Lord. Thank you for being here with us this evening. Thank you for having us to join together to do the work of your people here in the county of Cumberland. Lord, we thank you for all the blessings that you have bestowed upon us. Lord, we ask that you bless each and every family represented here and those that are in the listening audience on television, Lord. We ask for your forgiveness and things that we have not done to your liking, and we ask for you to please have your tender mercies on us each and every day, Lord. Thank you for blessing us. Thank you for just life, Lord. In Jesus Christ, Son, Lord, we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Evans.
He added a little prayer, Charles. He said,
This time we've got a few members in the audience that are members of our boards and commissions that we appoint, and these boards and commissions are a great service to our community. We cannot imagine the county commissioners having to do all the business of this county. So I see Vicki Andrews. Are you back there? I saw Vicki Andrews. Yes.
very bad.
Yeah, please wave your hand. Thank you. I can't see all the way back. Yes. Member of our planning board and also our Civic Center Commission. Also saw Diane Wheatley come in. Diane, thank you. Thank you. She's a member of our planning board. And I saw Harold Smeltzer, who is a longtime member of our city-county joint board of Parks and Recreation. Are you still here, Harold? Okay. Okay, and at this time, it is the tradition and honor of Cumberland County Commissioners to have the first 15 minutes of our third Monday evening meeting as a public comment period. And I would like to introduce Manager Amy Cannon to give us the rules and regulations for our comments.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their thoughts and comments with the Board of County Commissioners. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes. The total public comment period will not exceed 15 minutes. We ask that each speaker give their name and their address before they begin their remarks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Cannon. At this point, I'd like to call on our county clerk. Are there any speakers?
Commissioners, we have one speaker this evening. That would be Miss Melissa Allen.
Okay. Ms. Allen?
while she's coming, Diane used to be a county commissioner also.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Melissa Allen.
Ms. Allen, pull your mic down.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Perfect.
My name is Melissa Allen, address 397 Rose Hill Road, apartment 321, 3212, zip code is 28311. And I would like to address the Board of Commissions concerning the homelessness, and regarding the funding that is available to our residents or to the community, and in the joint committee that was put together to develop programs and services regarding the homeless issue back in 2017, and when will the homeless issue, be placed again on the agenda to be discussed, as well as where are y'all at on that time, I guess the timeline of programs or services that were being put in motion. Also, have to pose a question concerning land that may be available in the county for emergency shelter during the cold months. Where's the land already available? And when can Community Awareness Alliance meet with the county commissioners to discuss some plans that we are, our thoughts, or some plans that we are working in motion that we can do to help with the homeless population, as far as emergency shelter during the cold months. And that's all I have. Under 3 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
I'm sorry. Don't want to speak with the assistants, but touch bases with the assistants to schedule a meeting to speak with the commissioners. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Are there further speakers?
There are no further speakers.
Okay, we'll close the public comment period this time. I'd like to call on Ms. Cannon for the approval of the agenda.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we have 2 contested planning cases this evening that have been withdrawn. Those 2 cases are 4C on your agenda, which is case P 19-39.
Okay.
And 4E, case P 1946.
Okay. Okay, and did we have a presentation we wanted to add?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would like to add a special presentation, item 2B, after the audit presentation.
Okay, you've heard the changes to the agenda. Are there questions, comments, or do I hear a motion to approve?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda with the additions and corrections as noted. In discussion, all in favor?
Unanimous.
Item 2A, Ms. Cannon.
Yes, sir. Item 2A is a presentation of the fiscal year 2019 annual audit. I'd like to introduce April Adams. She's a partner with Cherry Beckert, and Vicki Evans, our finance director. Welcome.
Good evening, Chairman Faircloth and Commissioners.
Good evening.
Again, April Adams, CPA and partner with Cherry Becker, and I will be presenting the fiscal year 19 audit results. For the audience, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or the CAFR, is on the county's website. And once April has shared the results, I will present some slides highlighting key results of the general fund.
Excuse me. Good evening, Chairman Faircloth and Board.
Good evening and welcome, Ms. Adams.
The generally accepted auditing standards require that the auditor provide an opinion on whether the financial statements are presented fairly. This slide presents the summary of those results. The county received an unmodified, or otherwise known as a clean opinion. This is the highest level of assurance that we, as a certified public accountant, can give. This report and opinion can be found on page B1 through B3 of the CAFR. When performing an audit on a government entity, an additional set of auditing standards called the government auditing standards must be applied. These additional standards require that we issue a report on compliance and internal controls over financial reporting. The purpose of this report is to describe the scope and the results of that testing, and not to provide an opinion on the internal controls over financial reporting or on compliance. Under the requirements of the Uniform Grant Guidance, we performed a single audit of federal and state grant expenditures. This report can be found in the last section of the CAFR, U1 through U30. The auditor is required to express opinion on whether the government complied with laws and regulations and provisions of contracts or grant agreements that could have a direct and material effect on each major federal or state program. The county received unmodified or clean opinions on both the federal and state compliance. In addition to the CAFR, you've been provided with a letter. This letter is known as the Statement of Auditing Standards number 114, Communication with Governing Boards. The letter is required by auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America, and it discusses, one, our firm's responsibilities when in accordance with the audit, the county's significant accounting policies, and the county's, or changes in the accounting policies, and then identifies what the significant estimates are in the CAFR. So I would encourage you to take a look at that letter.
Thank you, April. Just to briefly cover some highlights of the general fund. The general fund's revenue and other financing sources exceeded expenditures and other financing uses by a little over $1 million, as shown in the green ovals. This gain, when applied to the beginning fund balance of $118.6 million, results in an ending fund balance of $119.6 million. This slide displays the 5 different categories of fund balance that make up total fund balance of $119.6 million. As a reminder, fund balance categories include non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. The fiscal year 19 results of actual revenue are shown on this slide, broken down. As you can see, ad valorem taxes represent almost 60% of total general fund revenues. The fiscal year 2019 general fund actual expenditure summary is shown on this slide by functional category. Education has the highest representation of general fund expenditures at 29%, followed by social services and public safety at 18% each. The top 3 make up over 65% of general fund expenditures. So I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize the county's finance staff who put many hours into completing the audit and the CAFR. Bob Tucker, Yvonne Mendez, Todd Hathaway, Kelly Autry, and Jessica Hollander, and also to the staff of the print shop, including Angie Cunningham and Deb Horton, who did a fabulous job producing this book. And also April Adams and Linda Suggs and her team from Cherry Beckert. They work very closely with our staff, and we appreciate having that good relationship. And to the Board of Commissioners, I'd like to request your acceptance of the fiscal year 19 audited comprehensive annual financial report. And if you have any questions, April and I can address them.
Before I ask for a motion, are there any questions for either Vicki or April? If not, then let's hear a motion to accept the report, please.
Move we accept the audited comprehensive annual financial report for fiscal year ending June 30, 2019.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Not all in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the job well done. We look forward to hearing some even better news later on in the year about this audit report. Item 2B, Ms. Cannon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. As you know, this Board of Commissioners had an entry in the Christmas parade this year. The float was made fully in-house by county staff, and we really saw this as a fun and unique way of telling our county story. The theme was reduce, reuse, and recycle, and wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and a Green New Year. And our county employees enjoy doing this, and they did it with pride. And we thought we would be remiss in not recognizing the county employees who put together that float and also participated in that event. Sally and her staff have put together a little video that kind of tells you the story.
Then you bring the dog. What do you yell at the dog? There it is.
This past week, the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners and several county departments participated in the Fayetteville Rotary Christmas Parade with a float wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and a Green New Year. The float was designed to remind everyone of the importance of reducing, reusing, and recycling in order to help protect our environment and reduce the materials in the county landfill. The float was a collaborative effort between the county's Solid Waste Management, Public Information Office, Print Shop, and Carpentry. The materials used to create the float were either recycled or can be used or recycled. The Christmas trees were crafted from wooden pallets. The tinsel, wreaths, and flowers were made from soda bottles, and the candy canes were actually PVC pipes. Solid Waste Management provided the tractor and trailer. Chairman Marshall Faircloth and Commissioners Michael Booth and Charles Evans represented the Board of Commissioners. They were joined on the float by County Manager Amy Cannon and Can Guy, one of North Carolina's Recycle Guy's characters that helps educate school children about recycling. Two mascots from Animal Control, Daisy and Dandelion, walked with the other Animal Control staff and were a big hit with the children. Solid Waste Management also partnered with Sustainable Sandhills for a second parade entry celebrating the Go Green program in Cumberland County Schools. It was a great day and a wonderful way to kick off the holiday season and wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Green New Year.
Somebody get up here and introduce this illustrious group here now.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I'll read the names of the county employees, if I could, please. From our Solid Waste Management Department, you know Amanda Botter, our Solid Waste Director. Raise your hand when I call your name, please. Mr. John Brannon, Darelka Carter, Karen Hall, Jermaine Lee. Our own Kathy McVeigh is the Can Guy mascot. And David Roberts had the pleasure of driving the tractor Saturday.
And nobody got run over on
And
that.
that's right, he did an excellent
Not
job.
on his watch.
It was close.
Close. Almost got you, Charles. He said,
Almost got you.
Look at that, Charles.
Oh yeah, he almost got me. He almost got me. But
You almost got him, huh?
you didn't introduce my dog.
I'm not there yet.
Okay. Okay.
So from the print shop, and the print shop also played a hand in creating the float. Our print shop supervisor is Angie Cunningham. Also participating was Deb Horton and Mia Perry. And let me also say they're responsible for the wreaths that are on the county buildings. From the carpentry shop, there was some woodwork on the float. Sean Curran, Randy Gaskins, and Bruce Ramsey. From our public information office, Dan Grubb, Claudia Severs, Sally Shutt, and Cherry Beth Thomas. And finally, from Animal Control, we were so pleased they joined us. Sergeant Joanne Miller as Daisy the dog.
There you go, Charles.
Sergeant Christy Burns as Dandelion the cat.
Show your
Lieutenant
tail, Dandelion. There you go.
They got that on video.
And we also had to have handlers because it's very difficult to see from out of these costumes. Lieutenant Chris Long, who helped Daisy. Claudia Smith helped Dandelion, and then we also have Elaine Smith, the Director of Animal Control. And I felt like it would be appropriate to have the county employees that took a lot of pride in creating a float that this board could be proud of and tell our story. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for allowing us to have this special presentation.
Can we take a picture?
We're gonna get a picture in just a minute, but I wanted these other four commissioners to see what they missed, because honest to God, we had a ball. I mean, and I'll let Charles and Mike speak for themselves.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic. I loved everybody that was in it under costumes and whatnot. But my favorite was Poochie Poo. I love Poochie Poo because Poochie is so humble acting. That's my Poochie Poo. But everything was so nice, and the float was beautiful.
You would be too if you had a 6-foot cat next to you.
Yeah, no, it was truly a lot of fun. When we first got out there, it was a little hazy, and everybody's still kind of looking up like, is it going to turn gray or blue? And the blue came out just about a half hour before we launched. There was no doubt that the giant John Deere tractor was definitely a county entry and not a city entry in the thing. And at the reviewing stand, when Mark and Denise Lynch were announcing us and giving the accolades to the theme of the reduce, recycle, reuse, yeah. The city showed up a little bit, kind of coming around the corner, and have now challenged us. So I don't want to, y'all to rest on your laurels as winning the first one, because they had nothing. But they've challenged, and they're going to be in the hunt next year. So we'll have to take them on. It was a lot of fun. And salute. I don't know what you were drinking or what vitamins you're taking, but you were all over the place. I don't think you slept the night before, because you were everywhere that needed to be done. And I'd see you out in the front of the thing and back, at the back, candy handing out with little kids. It was a lot of energy and very focused.
She made me tired.
Yeah.
Sally was everywhere.
It was an incredible amount of fun, and one of the joke of the day was the can, wave can. We always say, "Can, if you fall off, we're just gonna kick you down the road like good politicians." So
that was your chairman.
That was
a joke that somebody kept telling.
Yeah. But in any case, can we get a picture with the? Yeah, get a picture of the group with the county commissioners.
As long as it's on that end, it's okay. You ain't really worried about it. Stay down there.
Cat's pretty tall.
And the cat down there too.
Put the cat on the other end.
He said he was about 6 foot tall and got right in front of me.
You good. Where your head over there? You can be seen right there.
Yep, there we go. Chairwoman Council, if you could scoot to your right.
Scoot to my right.
Ready? Up here. Everybody look. 1, 2.
Wait.
There is no way. All right, one more.
What'd she say? There is no way. What'd she say?
And 1, 2.
These are the important ones anyway. Thank y'all.
Thank
Fantastic.
Actually, you make a great can.
No. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
All right, Charles, don't get no fleas on my dog yet.
Let's move on. Yeah, that's a photo without me. I want on the what's called it. I want on the floor. Let's move on. Come on, Mr. Chairman. We want to be out here. Let me be out.
Okay, that's the fun part of the agenda. Let's see, item number
3 is the
Item number
consent
3, Ms. Cannon,
agenda.
thank
Yes, sir, the consent agenda.
anything for the consent agenda, folks?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Moved and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Unanimous.
Okay. Next item for Ms. Cannon.
Item number 4 is our public hearings. We'll begin with our uncontested rezoning cases, and I'd call our planning director, Ross Howard.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cannon. Good evening, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be
Welcome,
with you this evening. Let me see if I can pull some of these up. The first case I have for you this evening is case P 1941. As Ms. Cannon just stated, this is a uncontested or a consent request. Just to give you a little bit of background, I just have one slide unless you want to go into more specifics, but basically the applicant owner is Michael Michelle Brown. The request was to go from A1, which is an agricultural district, to R40 residential, the purpose of which is they wish just to simply put a second home on the lot. When staff reviewed it, we didn't have a problem with it. It went to the planning board. It was also approved and is plan compliant. So if you got any questions, I'll be happy to go into a presentation if need be.
Any quick questions? If not, I'll open the public hearing at this time. Madam Clerk, any speakers?
There are no speakers.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I'll do it.
Okay, Commissioner Lancaster.
In the case of P 19-41, I move to approve the rezoning from A1 agriculture to R40 residential, and find this request consistent with the adopted 2030 Growth Vision Plan from 2009, which calls for rural areas at this location, and further find that approval of the request is reasonable and in the public interest because the district requested is in harmony with surrounding zoning and existing land uses.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. In discussion? All in favor?
Unanimous.
Item 4B, Mr. Chair, is case P 1945.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cannon. So this is, again, a uncontested case, case P 19-45. You can see by the location map, this is up in the Bethany area of the county. Again, just briefly, the applicant is Nettie Curry and the agent is Tyler England. The request is to C3 heavy commercial and A1 agriculture, going into just all of A1 agriculture. The reason for the request is simply that the property owners just wanted to bring their existing property into conformance so they can add and be able to build onto their property. It's completely surrounded by A1. Staff didn't have a problem with it. It went to the board, and that was also supported, and it's also plan compliant. So again, I'll go into this presentation if you want to.
What's your pleasure? Okay. This time I'll open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, anything?
There are no speakers.
No speakers. I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, in case P 19-45, I move to approve the rezoning from C3 heavy commercial and A1 agricultural to A1 agricultural, and find this request is consistent with the adopted 2030 Growth Vision Plan of 2009, which calls for rural areas at this location, and further find that the approval of the request is reasonable and in the public interest because approval will remove the nonconformity from an existing residential structure now that the previous commercial use has ceased and the district requested is in harmony with the surrounding existing zoning.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. In discussion? All in favor?
Unanimous.
Ms. Cannon?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we have one contested rezoning case, case P 1942.
Yes, sir, Commissioners, you can see by the location map that's before you, this is in the Vander area of our county. So the applicant owner is Inkfish LLC. The agent is Mr. Charles Morris, who is actually here this evening to speak on this case if you wish to hear from him. But the request is go from M2 heavy industrial and CP planned commercial and R6A residential to one zoning district, which would be MP, which is our planned industrial district, which for this particular case is also a conditional zoning as well too. You can see by the zoning map here before you that there are 3 zonings that sit on this property. We try to color code this a little bit better so you can try to get an idea of what we're dealing with. But the subject property that you see right here is this building that you see that's been sitting there. It has been sitting there vacant for a good period of time. The majority of it is zoned M2. The blue line that you see outlining this property is a zoning line. Those are not parcel lines. So this request would also be bringing the entire property into a conformance zoning-wise by tying it all into one zoning district. But you can kind of see what's around it. You have M2, which is a heavy industrial district. You have R6A, and then you have CP, which is one of our heavier commercial districts. And of course, down here in the south, we have a lot of this R6A, which is our which is a higher density residential zone. So I know this is a busy slide, but I wanted to put this up here just so you can get a general idea of what's around this. You can see this is Clinton Road that you see running east-west direction that sits on the north. This is the subject property. This is Sunnyside School Road, and this, I believe, is Rock Hill Road, if I'm not mistaken, that sits, so it's bounded on three sides by a road. But you can see here, we try to simplify these maps a little bit better by kind of color coding what you see around it. But you can see you have a parks, church, institutional uses. You have the Vander Park sitting here on the corner, and then you have a lot of the single family that sits back here, and then you have vacant property that sits to the west. If I'm going too fast, please let me know.
So is the vacant property inside that area that's gonna be zoned?
No.
Rezoned?
No, sir.
So what is the vacant property? What's that zoning for that vacant property right there? next to the
It
manufacturing?
is, I would say it's a mix of R6A and then CP. So it is also a split zone piece of property.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Keith?
Yeah. Is the R6, these are obviously different parcels that are on there, right? So,
Yes.
Okay. Are they all owned by the same individual?
You mean these parcels?
Well, the C1P, the CP, the R6, I mean, there's, the purple lines are the zoning requests.
Mm-hmm.
Does the
property?
owner of the M2?
I'm sorry. I was mistaken. They're property lines, Commissioner.
Second?
They are property lines. I'm sorry. I was mistaken.
Okay, the dark brown lines.
These right here, this blue line right here is a property line. This blue line is property. Right? And the brown lines too. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Right here as well.
Wait a
It
minute.
can't be, that don't make sense.
Black line is the zoning line.
That's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, so the black line is the zoning line. These brown lines are parcel lines that you see already.
Okay.
Yeah, and the blue is the subject property. My apologies. I'm getting confused as well.
I am too. We're good. That's CP property. Right there. Is that one piece of property or is that a number of pieces of property?
I believe that's one piece of property that's bounded in such a way that you see here. I believe it's just split zone with this black line that you see running through the middle of it.
Does the owner of that M2 building own the CP and part of that R6?
No, sir.
But he's asking for rezoning on property he doesn't own?
No.
That's what it looks like.
The blue line is the entire set of property and is one lot. There's three different zoning classifications on there. There's a little bit of R6A, a little bit of CP, and a little bit of MP.
Yeah, so
That's
I think,
the set of property.
I think what you're asking, Commissioner, is that a lot?
It's not.
Is that,
Is this a lot?
is it?
It's all part of the same set of property. It's one lot.
Yeah, it's all part of the same subject property that you see here outlined in blue. So these brown lines are simply just the boundaries between the zoning districts themselves.
Yeah.
But is it a lot?
It's not a lot. It's part of the same lot. The blue line is the lot.
Yes.
The blue line is a lot.
Is the parcel.
And this particular lot has three
Separate
different
zoning districts.
zoning.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so with the approval of this request, it would be tying it up into one zoning district. It would be consolidating all that into one.
And based on the information, just so the public knows, this is an existing business right now.
Correct.
And it is operating as a manufacturing business.
I believe this has not been operating for some time. I think the previous use was some sort of a manufacturing, a light manufacturing
Okay.
use. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sorry for the confusion on that.
It's okay.
So I can make sure I understand. So where the CP is and the yellow line comes down, the yellow line is just kind of under the purple line to make that.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But that's why it doesn't look like you. Okay, so it looks like, okay, I got it now. I got it.
That's what you told.
That's why it's not another piece of property. I got it.
That's
So,
right.
If I can, go back. That is all owned by the same person.
This blue line is
It's
owned
all
by
owned by
the
the
same.
same person. Got
Yes.
it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm tracking.
The yellow line came down up under that purple
What
for the
confuses me
CP.
is the brown line in there.
Yes.
Let's do this.
I was trying to consolidate this map the best I could. So.
Absolutely.
Ross, give me attention, man. Let's go back to the map that you had the hatch pattern on.
That one there?
No, going back,
That one?
that one there. Inside the red line, that is one lot owned by one person that has three different zonings. Is that what we?
Yes.
Okay, is that clarify? Okay. Are there any other questions before we go to public hearing?
I have a couple more slides I had to go through, if
Okay,
that's
sure,
okay.
absolutely.
If I just
Go
want to finish
right
my
ahead. I'm sorry,
presentation.
didn't mean to interrupt.
So like you can see what's around it. It's a very busy intersection, but you can see there's already a lot of commercial uses that are currently out there. So when we looked at the utilities for the site, you can see here clearly that there's no hydric soils, but we also put the fact that we do have PWC water and sewer. Of course, the water is the blue line, and then the sewer is the brown line, but the site is readily serviceable by these utilities if so desired. So I just want to put that out there for you. This is the site plan. Since this is a conditional zoning, we do require a site plan to be attached to this. Really, there's no additions or expansion to the request that we've gotten it, but so the plan just shows the existing building with the setbacks you can see that are outlined on here. And pretty much there's no expansion of the footprint. It's just basically using the existing building as it sits right now. When we looked at the plan, the Vander plan calls for this to be light commercial, which does cater to the needs of the neighborhood with an emphasis on goods and services. So staff did feel like that the request when we talked with the developer is compliant with that. This is the subject property. You can already see there's some work being done on the outside as we speak right now. We also put these insert maps here so you can get an idea of where we're looking in relation to these maps. So we're standing on Rock Hill Road right now looking at the subject site. This is the subject property you can see just from a different angle. This is standing on Rock Hill Road. You can see looking north. So the subject property is right here to the left of this street. You can see there's the railroad track. This is standing on the property looking across the street. That's the Vander Park, I guess is a community center or some sort of space. This is standing on Clinton Road looking down Rock Hill. The side street, you can see that there is the sign out there. We did post the sign, but the site itself is sitting right over here to the right. So you can see kind of what's around it. You've got other types of buildings as you can see here. So when the staff first took a look at this, we had recommended denial of the MP district just simply because we thought that's the most intense district that you can get for an industrial use. But we did place a recommendation on the site for a light manufacturing, which still got the applicant to the same end. So when we went to the planning board, we also pushed that forward. The applicant also agreed to the light manufacturing as well too, but by that time the packets had already gone out. We already advertised for that district. So basically, just to boil it down to brass tacks, the applicant, the planning board, and the staff were all in agreement with the light manufacturing district, and that was an 8-0 vote. So everybody agrees. So otherwise, this would have been on the uncontested case, but simply by the fact that we had already mailed the the packets out and done our work, I had to put it on a contested case. And so the applicant's here to talk on his case if you want to also speak to him.
Any other questions? Okay. This time I'll open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
We have 2 speakers in favor this evening and no speakers in opposition.
Does anybody want to hear the speakers in favor?
Is there a spokesperson for, are the two related? Like one's not a neighbor and one's the owner?
Okay, they're coming up to speak, so.
I'm
Yes,
Charles
sir.
Morris, 831 Arsenal Avenue, Fayetteville, 28305.
My question is just, is his summary accurate that after it was back and forth, now everyone's in agreement?
Yeah, we're all good.
Okay.
We're good.
That's all I wanted to. That's my question.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing if that's okay with the speakers, and I'll ask for a motion, I'm sorry.
In case P 19-42, I move to deny the rezoning from M2 heavy industrial CP plan commercial and R6 residential to MP plan industrial CZ conditional zoning for all permitted uses and instead approve M1P plan light industrial conditional zoning for all permitted uses in the M1P district and find A, the approval is an amendment to adopt the current Vander use land plan 2017 map, and that the Board of Commissioners should not require any additional request or application for the amendment to said map for this request. The following change in conditions was considered in amending the zoning ordinance, the zoning map to meet the development needs of the community. The parcel is currently zoned a dormant district that is in line with industrial zoning, has access to public water and sewer, and is located along a major thoroughfare. And this rezoning approval is reasonable and in the public interest because the district requested will allow the property owner to utilize an existing vacant building being developed for manufacturing with appropriate uses.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, or is there further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Unanimous.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Cannon?
Yes, sir. Our next item is our items of business. This is consideration of a new subrecipient agreement from the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency. It relates to the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funding. This was an item that Mr. Jackson presented at your agenda session, and the consensus was to move it forward as an item of business.
Thank you, Ms.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Good evening.
Bring this item back before you, and I'll just give you a brief summary. It'll mirror what was discussed at our agenda session last week. For history's sake, everybody obviously remembers Hurricane Matthew in October of 2016. When it came to CDBG, DR, or Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funds, the state put out its action plan and asked the county to submit its proposal by September 15th of 2017. The county submitted its proposal, and a couple of weeks later, September 27th, 2017, the state awarded the county $34,945,328 over a 6-year period. Now, that money was to be a reimbursement for any expenditures related to approved grant projects. Since 2017, the county has approved a handful of different agreements with the state, as they have revised those and amended those over time. And most recently, the state came back to us after standing up a new organization within state government called the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency, or NCORE, as it's called for short. And they have asked the county to sign a new subrecipient agreement. The new agreement proposes a state-centric model, which removes a huge burden from the county. In that respect, there'll be less staff time involved with it. The state would have more hands-on direction and administration of the different programs and projects. Robbins Meadow project is being broken out and is being treated separately. That is one exception. And community development will continue to manage this project. CDBG DR funding has and will continue to flow to the county as a most impacted and distressed area. And those funds, so far to date, according to the state, have totaled $23 million that have been committed to different projects here in Cumberland County and within the city of Fayetteville. The county will not have as much say about where funding can go as the program evolves and NCORE takes over the grant administration. State and federal funding for Hurricane Matthew and Florence will continue to evolve as time continues to move forward. At present, the state is taking comments on a new program known as CDBG MIT. So we're seeing different funding programs arise and develop over time, and the state is trying to adapt and adjust as they receive new pots of funding, and that trickles downhill eventually to us. So the action that's being requested tonight is approval of the attached agreement and a request for authorization for the county manager to sign the agreement. And I'll be glad to try to answer any questions you may have for me.
Okay, Chair recognizes Commissioner Keith.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. I have two questions, and based upon the briefing that we received at the agenda session. One of the things that the representative from the state said that there were projects that were going on in Cumberland County that they were paying directly to those individuals. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Okay. How are we tracking that? Because there's no way to know. They've allotted some money to us, but the state's just paying them off. How do we know what is being actually coming to Cumberland County?
Sure, that's a great question. So there's a couple of ways. One of those is that the state could tell us. But also, because these are HUD programs, they're required to submit quarterly reports. Mm-hmm. And they post these on the web. So it's on the state's website. So you can go and you can pull up these quarterly reports that show exactly where the dollars are going and what's being done in each of the most impacted counties.
So when we're briefed on, whenever you come and brief us on, I'm so used to saying CBDG, disaster relief, now I have to say MIT, I have to relearn it all. you'll be able to tell us through that report on how much of the funding is actually coming back to Cumberland County.
So one thing we could do, and this is just a suggestion, we do a monthly report at the agenda session. It's just included
Right.
in the packet as a CDBGDR update.
Sure.
We could work with our community development department to pull the information from that quarterly report, into the monthly report as time passes.
Thank you.
Yes,
The other thing that was mentioned is, although not so much in Hurricane Matthew, but when the Hurricane Florence money is, there was an emphasis, and seemed to be from the state, that we can allot some of this funding to infrastructure. But one of the things that they were pretty set on was you've got to have plans moving forward for infrastructure. If we had any discussions with our engineering department about creek beds that may be used to mitigate storm damage, and maybe the next time we have something that we can suppress the flooding in some way, is our engineering department able to pull up some of those projects in Cumberland County?
So right after Hurricane Matthew, we were able to do some analysis and able to obtain some funds. And we've set priorities throughout the county for different creeks, waterways that need to be cleared of debris. And as funding has become available, we've moved those projects up and gotten approval to work certain lengths of different streams and waterways. And we'll continue that process as we get different funding and as that's advanced. So will that be eligible in the upcoming funding? I don't know, but our staff is aggressive in looking at other possible sources, and we'll continue to look at CDBG, DR funds, but we also use the USDA, Golden Leaf, other types of funding out there that are available. So we just continue to chip away at it.
It was my understanding from them that they are looking for us to submit funding requests, as opposed to whenever funds become available that we might be able to take advantage of it. Is that part of our?
That's what they've told us at this point. They're still taking public comment on the proposed funding and the action plan that they have in place at this point as a draft.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take them at their word, then we're just waiting for the formal regulations and the process to be able to request projects.
Yeah.
So,
And finally, I do understand that the infrastructure component to this is not been vetted all the way through the process.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that'll be the case. It remains
So
to be
am I.
seen, though.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, sir.
The chair recognizes Commissioner Adams.
Mr. Jackson, I just, because even when they were talking about it at the agenda setting conference, MacArthur Park 2, that's with the city,
Yes, sir.
and that's the one they building up on MacArthur Road, kind of down the street from, it's right next to the storage place.
Okay. I recognize the name of the project.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the
Where it
project,
is.
though.
Okay, so we kind of looked it up online, and it's actually swimming pool, indoor gym, everything. So I'm trying to figure out, as much as, not in the Spring Lake proper, but outside, we've got some county property outside. It's why we're not doing one of these developments like that in the county somewhere. I mean, that thing, it is, y'all should look it up. We're gonna move there.
Very nice. Very nice.
In terms of what is there. So can we still decide the projects? Like, I don't even know where that one came from. It's about up now, because I drive by there on occasion. So I'm just trying to figure out why we didn't do some of this kind of like affordable housing like this if it's just a new development that they built.
Yes.
And I don't know who they've got going into it or whatever.
I could look into it to see where the funding came from, if
Well,
it
it
truly
says
was
through the, North
CDBGDR
Carolina-
or,
Funded through the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, but it's part of
Okay.
this resiliency thing. So
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out why we
So-
don't have one somewhere in the county that looks
Right.
like this.
so for that project, I'm not familiar with it being under CDBGDR. They may have access to other funds that we do not have access to. I can look into it and find out where it came from and how they approached it. I would tell you that with the monies that we had access to under CDBGDR, we had submitted our projects in advance, and then we vetted those as time went along. And
But the only project we got is what? Robbins Meadows and what else?
We have Robbins Meadows, and we've done rehabs and some renovations on some homes that needed that type of work.
Right. And this is a $10 million new development. This is, and it's not you, Mr. Jackson. This is the state.
I don't take it that way. That's fine.
But this is the state in terms of all of this pot of money
Sure.
that they're talking about. And I don't know if this even, because this is through the Housing Finance Company. I don't
Sure.
know if it's one of those, it may be the low income thing that you do that has the set off and stuff. But with all of this different pots of money, because they try to stick it in here on this thing that we're about to redo with them, but it evidently didn't come through all of these funds. These things that's listed didn't come through this CBGR, Encore, what Encore wants to do. This is just money that flowed through to Cumberland County from any kind of source. So the reason I asked that, and you may not know, is because out of that $34 million is how much I want to know that was spent in Cumberland County, because some of these sources here was not part of that $34 million.
You're correct. I mean, if you look at the disaster aid that the county's received over time, it's probably $100+ million in lots of different areas. Some that are visible, some that may not be so visible. If it's a bridge repair that DOT did, or something like that, it could really range in terms of the aid. It could have been an aid to a farmer. So there's lots of things out there that we may know about directly, or that we may have had a hand in, or that we didn't. So that one in particular I could look into.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, that's a city project.
I'm
so
curious
don't worry
myself
about it.
now that you've asked the question.
It's just
But to get to your point and to your question, we have been led to believe there'll be opportunities to apply for different types of programs like this. I've spoken to community development and asked them to look at different areas around the county where there's potentials for multifamily housing. But again, it's got to fit a certain criteria and meet the needs of the low-income folks that have housing needs.
So, and that goes back to the very first point. The very first speaker we had tonight, who was talking about homelessness, all right, which is the lower. I mean, if they don't meet the criteria, nobody meets the criteria. And so, and I see where they're going to do the community resource center, but that doesn't house anybody. I mean, it's a resource center to get you to go. So why are we not applying somewhere, somebody, for funds to build? I mean, the place they build in MacArthur is fine, but I don't think they are going to be letting homeless folk in there the way it looks.
Right. There's not a process to apply for it yet. So at least for us, we've applied for what we could. We've run that rabbit as far as we can, and now we're waiting for this new program to get up and going so we can see what they have in store for us.
So basically, you tell me about every 6 months they change the program, because this is about the third.
It changes.
This is about the third or fourth one that we've amended. Right. It's about the third or fourth one.
It changes a lot.
Thank you.
Yes, unfortunately.
The chair recognizes Commissioner Booth.
Thank you, sir. And this may not be, you look up on Google, you may not find exactly what you're looking for, but it says that it's at 2523 Mulraney Drive, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28311, which, having lived there, I recognize that is North Ramsey Street, MacArthur Road, Rose Hill Road area. And they have a Olympic-sized pool with spa chairs. These aren't artist depictions. These are photographs. They've got a recreation center meeting area near the pool. They have a sand-filled volleyball court with picnic tables around it. They've got inside the residences, they have granite countertop, 2-leveled bars to sit around with stainless steel appliances and built-in microwaves and polished cabinets and drop-down lights and a floor-to-ceiling stone fireplace, mountain stone fireplace, and a gym with 6 or 8 treadmills, heavy weights. That's what I'm saying. I just need a little assurance that $10 million we didn't just let go away, that's not coming out of our pot. That's truly just the city of Fayetteville's kitty somewhere, because we could have done a little less elaborate with a whole lot more housing. And as Commissioner Adams said, gotten to people that need a place to stay, not a place to retire. So I know you didn't do this, and the formula changes. In fact, while we're speaking, they're probably doing it again. But since it's on our agenda here to see that it's multifamily $9.821 million for new development, unless you look at it, it makes it gives you that false feeling that there's going to be a lot of people with a $10 million subdivision that are going to be either getting better residents than they had before the storms, improved residents, but it looks like it's for a lot less people than I would have imagined for $10 million, but it looks like a retirement community. And I just don't want it coming out of our kitty because we didn't approve this or submit it. So I just don't want them to drain our 34.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Jackson? If not, I'd like to ask the board, what is your pleasure? Ms. Key.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think the state is taking over this project. So it's not like we can do anything else but other than accept the recommendation to allow the state to work on this project. Is that pretty much how you see it, Mr. Jackson?
Basically, at this point, the state's going to reallocate the money. They've said verbally it will stay in Cumberland County. The only thing we'll have that we're responsible for is that $2.7 million for Robbins Meadow and some remaining home renovations. That's all I can tell
It's
you.
not a motion. Not a motion.
In that case, I'll make the motion.
All right.
It looks to me like it's one of these things that it's kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, so I'll make the recommendation.
Okay, I hear a motion to approve. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Is there discussion? Council. Council.
I gathered from listening to the presentation on was that just last Thursday?
Yes.
Yes.
That we have absolutely no recourse. That it's a done deal, like it or not, the way a lot of these actions have been. And so the only thing that I see that we can do is hold our nose and go vote for it. Not that I want to, but what choice do we have? If we don't vote for it, what happens?
They take it anyway.
They take the money back?
No. You're right.
They do? Okay. Well, then in that case,
Well, at this point, the $2.7 million is on the table for Robbins Meadow.
we wouldn't be able to
We
draw
wouldn't be
down
able
that.
to do the Robbins Meadow
We
project.
would not be able to draw down Robbins Meadow.
Good point.
That project should have been about.
Okay, is there further discussion on the motion, which is,
Then I'll call the question.
okay, question's been called, and no further discussion, so I ask for your vote. All in favor?
That is unanimous.
Okay.
Oh, no, it was not unanimous. It was,
Oh, I'm sorry.
6-1.
Okay, who do we have
Because it's gonna pass,
voting-
it's gonna go, but
voting in
I was
Please,
voting no.
please show the clerk your hand if you're for it.
Okay, Commissioners Keith, Lancaster, Council, Chairman Faircloth, Commissioner Booth, and Evans voted in favor. Voting in opposition, Commissioner Adams.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, item number 6 is nominations to our various boards and commissions. The first is 6A. There are 3 vacancies for the Civic Center Commission. Do I hear any nominations?
Mr. Chairman, they've got 3 people who are eligible for reappointment, and they've all said they were willing to serve. That's Mr. Joe Gillis, Ms. Sheba McIntyre, and Mr. Gregory
McNeil.
Parks. McNeil, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm about to get McIntyre. Sorry about that.
Okay, are there other
Gregory Parks.
I'm sorry, are there other nominations?
No.
Okay, item B is the Farm Advisory Board. There is 1 vacancy. Are there nominations?
I nominate Mr. Wayne Collier.
Wayne Collier, are there other nominations? Okay, Okay, we'll close nominations. Item C is the Fayetteville Cumberland County Economic Development Corporation. We have one vacancy.
Mr.
Recommend-
Chair, Don Broadwell
Hold on,
Jr.
not everybody at one time. Somebody push a button.
You the one that asked me to do it earlier today.
Oh,
The chairman asked.
Ms. Council.
I recommend, the reappointment of Don Broadwell Jr.
Okay, Don Brown
I'm
Jr.
sorry.
Are there other nominations? Okay, item D is the Fayetteville Cumberland Parks and Recreation. There are two vacancies. Are there nominations?
Have you got it? I recommend Miss Ivor Kelly, and I can't pull up the,
Harold Smith.
Harold Smelser.
Kelly and Smeltzer, okay.
thank you. I couldn't pull up the,
Can pull it up. Are there
I can pull
further,
it up.
are there further nominations for Parks and Rec? Okay, we'll close those nominations. Okay, and we have some appointments. I'd like to call on Vice Chairman Glenn Adams.
Mr. Chairman, there's only one nominee for the Cumberland County Workforce Development. I make a motion to appoint Alan W. Rogers to the Cumberland County Workforce Development Board in the category of Representative of Workforce.
Okay, is there a second?
second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Unanimous.
Okay. Next item is Cannon.
Item number 8 is a closed session for an attorney-client matter pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A3.
Okay, is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Unanimous.
Okay, the board will now go into closed session.
I move that we come out of closed session.
Been moved and seconded to come out of closed session.
See where that gets you.
Discussion, all in favor?
Unanimous.
We're out of closed session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, sir.
Moved and seconded to adjourn, all in favor?
Unanimous.
Okay.
Did the reporter leave?